The pediatric ward of St. Mary's Hospital was decorated for Christmas. Strings of lights wrapped around the nurse's station and paper snowflakes hanging from the ceiling. But despite the festive decorations, the atmosphere was somber. It was December 20th. Many of the children would be spending the holidays in hospital beds rather than at home with their families. Claire Whitmore had been a pediatric nurse for 6 years, long enough to know that the holidays were always the hardest time to work. She saw the longing in children's eyes as they watched Christmas specials on television, knowing they couldn't be home for the celebration. She saw parents trying to be brave while their hearts broke for their sick children. At 29th, Claire had chosen pediatric nursing specifically because she wanted to help children through their most difficult moments. She had grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes, never quite belonging anywhere. The nurses who had cared for her during a childhood illness had been the only people who had shown her consistent kindness, and she had never forgotten how much that had meant. On this particular evening, Claire was doing her rounds when she encountered 3 little girls who had been admitted that morning with severe flu complications. They were identical triplets, 4 years old, with blonde hair and matching pink bows and the kind of cherubic faces that belonged on greeting cards, according to their charts. Their names were Lily, Rose, and Daisy Parker. Their father had brought them in early that morning when their fevers wouldn't break, and they were having trouble breathing. All 3 were now stable, but being kept for observation and treatment. Claire checked their vital signs, administered medications, and made sure they were comfortable. The girls were shy at first, but warmed up quickly when Claire started telling them stories about a magical snowman who visited sick children to make them smile. "Are you going to visit our daddy?" Rose asked suddenly, her small voice hopeful. "Your daddy?" Claire repeated, confused. "He's all alone," Lily added. "He doesn't have anyone to talk to while we're here." "I'm sure your father is fine," Claire said gently. "He's probably just worried about you girls getting better." "He's lonely," Daisy insisted, with the certainty only a 4-year-old could possess. "He's always lonely since Mommy went to heaven. That's why we made him a note." The girls showed Claire a piece of paper they had been coloring on, decorated with crayon drawings of hearts and flowers. In careful child writing, someone had helped them write, "Please visit Daddy. He's lonely. He needs a friend. Love, Lily, Rose, and Daisy." Claire felt her heart squeeze. "When did your mommy go to heaven, sweethearts?" "A long time ago," Lily said. "We were babies. Daddy has pictures of her, and he says she was very beautiful and kind. He cries sometimes at night," Rose added matter-of-factly, "when he thinks we're sleeping. But we hear him, and he never has any friends come over," Daisy said. "Just work people sometimes, but never friends for fun." Claire looked at these 3 earnest little faces and felt something shift in her chest. "Where is your daddy now?" "In the waiting room. He hasn't left. The doctor said he could go home and sleep, but he won't leave us." After ensuring the girls were settled for the night, Claire made her way to the family waiting room. She found exactly one person there, a man who appeared to be in his mid-30s, wearing an expensive suit that was now rumpled from hours of wear. He sat with his head in his hands, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. "Mr. Parker," Claire said softly. The man looked up, and Claire was struck by his eyes, dark and filled with worry and weariness. He was handsome in a classical way, with strong features and dark hair, but it was the vulnerability in his expression that caught her attention. "Are my daughters okay?" he asked immediately, standing up. "Did something happen?" "They're fine," Claire assured him quickly. "I just finished checking on them. They're resting comfortably. I'm Claire Whitmore, one of the pediatric nurses. I wanted to update you and also to give you something." She handed him the note the girls had created. He read it, and Claire watched emotions play across his face, love for his daughters mixed with a profound sadness. "They're worried about me," he said quietly, almost to himself. "They're sick in the hospital, and they're worried about me being lonely. They love you very much. That's clear." "I love them more than anything in the world. They're all I have left. He looked up at Claire. I'm sorry, I'm being dramatic. It's just been a long day, and seeing them so sick, it brought back memories I'd rather not revisit. Your daughters mentioned they lost their mother, Claire said gently. 2 years ago. Cancer. It was aggressive and fast. She was diagnosed when the girls were 2, and she was gone 6 months later. They barely remember her, which breaks my heart in ways I can't explain. But they're my whole world now. In the thought of something happening to them, his voice broke. Claire sat down beside him. Mr. Parker, your daughters are going to be fine. The flu is serious, especially in young children, but they're responding well to treatment. They'll likely be able to go home in a day or 2. Thank you. And please, call me James. Mr. Parker makes me feel like I'm in a business meeting. James, then. Your girls are not only physically healthy, they're emotionally resilient and full of love. That's a credit to you and how you've raised them. I'm just trying not to fail them. Being a single father to triplets is overwhelming on the best days. Running my company, making sure they're cared for, trying to be both mother and father to them, is a lot. What kind of company do you run? Parker Industries. We manufacture medical equipment, actually. Supplies for hospitals, surgical tools, diagnostic devices. The irony of spending my life helping hospitals save lives while being unable to save my wife is not lost on me. Okay. They sat in silence for a moment before James spoke again. The girls wrote that note because they worry about me. They're 4 years old, and they've taken on the burden of worrying about their father's loneliness. That's not right. That's not how childhood should work. They worry because they love you, Claire said. And honestly, the fact that they feel secure enough to worry about you rather than just about themselves speaks to the stable, loving home you've created for them. You're doing better than you think. James looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since she had sat down. Thank you. You didn't have to come out here and talk to me. I'm sure you have other patients to care for. Wanted to. Your daughters asked me to, and when 3 determined 4-year-olds ask you to do something, it's hard to say no. James smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his tired face. They are remarkably persuasive. They get that from their mother. Over the next 2 days, as Lily, Rose, and Daisy recovered, Claire found herself spending extra time with the Parker family. She brought the girls books and helped them make Christmas decorations for their hospital room. She talked with James during her breaks, learning about his life and sharing carefully edited versions of her own. James was the CEO of Parker Industries, a 3rd-generation family business he had taken over at 30 after his father's retirement. He had met his wife Margaret in college, and by all accounts, theirs had been a love story for the ages until cancer had stolen her away far too soon. I haven't dated since she died, James admitted during one late-night conversation while the girls slept. I can't imagine letting someone else into our lives, into the girls' lives. What if they left? What if something happened? I can't bear the thought of them losing another person they love. But they're losing something by having a father who's isolated himself from the world, Claire said gently. They wrote you that note because they can see you're alone, and it worries them. Children need to see their parents have connections, friendships, lives beyond just parenting. It teaches them how to build healthy relationships themselves. You're probably right. But knowing something intellectually and having the courage to act on it are very different things. Claire understood that better than he knew. She had her own walls, her own fears about connection and belonging. Growing up in foster care had taught her that people left, that love was temporary, that opening your heart meant risking having it shattered. On December 22nd, the girls were cleared to go home. James arrived to pick them up, looking relieved and grateful, carrying matching new stuffed animals for each daughter. The triplets were delighted to be going home, but sad to leave Claire. Will you come visit us? Lily asked. I don't think I can, sweetheart. I have to stay here and take care of the other children who are sick. But you could visit after work, Rose suggested. Daddy makes really good hot chocolate, and we have a big Christmas tree. Girls, Miss Claire has her own life and her own plans, James said. But there was something in his eyes, a hope he was trying to hide, that made Claire pause. Actually, Claire heard herself saying, I'm working Christmas Eve, but I have Christmas Day off. I don't have any family plans. If you'd like company, I'd be happy to stop by for a little while. The girls erupted in excitement, and James looked both surprised and pleased. Are you sure? You must have better things to do than spend Christmas with a widower and his daughters. I really don't, Claire said honestly. I usually just work through the holidays. It would be nice to spend Christmas somewhere that feels like a home. They exchanged information, and Claire watched the Parker family leave, wondering what she had just gotten herself into. She didn't do family gatherings. She didn't build connections that could hurt when they inevitably ended. But something about James and his daughters had gotten past her defenses. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow covering the city in white. Claire, dressed carefully, was trying to find the balance between too casual and too formal for visiting relative strangers on Christmas. She stopped at a bakery and picked up pastries, and at a toy store where she bought small gifts for the girls. The Parker house was in an upscale neighborhood, a beautiful colonial with a porch wrapped in lights and a wreath on the door. Before Claire could even knock, the door flew open and 3 excited little girls rushed out. You came. You really came. Daisy, H-O-R-E-S-E-D, James appeared behind them, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of his usual suit, looking more relaxed than Claire had ever seen him. Girls, let Miss Claire come inside before you knock her over. The house was warm and beautifully decorated, with a massive Christmas tree in the living room covered in ornaments. But there was something careful about the decorations, something that suggested they were there because they were supposed to be, not because they brought joy. This is beautiful, Claire said, handing James the pastries and giving the girls their gifts. Thank you for coming, James said. I have to be honest, when you said you would, I didn't entirely believe it. People say things to be polite, and I figured this was one of those situations. Time meant it. I wanted to spend Christmas somewhere that mattered this year. They had breakfast together, the girls chattering excitedly about Santa's visit and showing Claire all their new toys. James made his promised hot chocolate, and it was indeed excellent. The morning felt easy and comfortable in ways Claire hadn't expected. After the girls went to play with their new toys, James and Claire sat together on the couch, watching the snow fall outside the window. Can I tell you something? James said. This is the first Christmas that's felt even close to normal since Margaret died. The first year, I was still in shock, just going through the motions for the girls' sake. Last year was harder in some ways because the reality had fully set in. But today, having you here, it feels less empty. I'm glad, Claire said. For what it's worth, this is the best Christmas I've had in years. Maybe ever. How is that possible? You're wonderful with children. You're clearly kind and compassionate. Surely you have family, friends who want you around for the holidays. Claire took a deep breath and told him the truth about growing up in foster care, about aging out of the system at 18 with no family connections, about building a career in nursing because she wanted to help others feel less alone, about spending most holidays working because having no one to celebrate with was easier than acknowledging the loneliness. I'm so sorry, James said when she finished. I can't imagine growing up without family, without that sense of belonging. You learn to adapt, but it does make connections difficult. I'm always waiting for people to leave, always expecting that I won't be enough to make them stay. It's easier to just keep people at a distance. And yet, you came here today. You let my daughters past your walls. It's hard to maintain walls against a 4-year-old triplets who hand you notes asking you to befriend their lonely father. James laughed. They are impossible to resist. I'm pretty sure that's how they convinced me to get a puppy last month. They talked for hours, the conversation flowing naturally between serious topics and lighter moments. The girls periodically interrupted to show them things or demand attention, but always returned to their play, secure in the knowledge that the adults were nearby. "Claire," James said as afternoon was turning to evening, "would you consider staying for dinner? I realize I'm probably overstaying the bounds of our acquaintance, but I'm not ready for today to end." "I'd like that," Claire admitted. "I'm not ready for it to end either." Over the following months, Claire became a regular presence in the Parker household. What started as occasional visits turned into weekly dinners, then weekend outings with the girls. James and Claire were careful not to label what was developing between them, both aware that they were dealing with fragile hearts, both their own and the girls'. But the attraction was undeniable, as was the deep emotional connection they were building. James made Claire feel seen and valued in ways she had never experienced. Claire made James feel alive again, reminded him that loving someone didn't mean betraying his late wife's memory. The girls were delighted with the development, viewing Claire as the mother figure they had been missing. They called her Miss Claire, but with an affection that suggested she was so much more than just their former nurse. 6 months after that Christmas, James took Claire to dinner at an expensive restaurant. Over dessert, he reached across the table and took her hand. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. When Margaret died, I thought my capacity for romantic love died with her. I thought I would spend the rest of my life being a father, and that would be enough. And maybe it would have been enough in a survival sense. But Claire, you've shown me that hearts can heal, that it's possible to love again without diminishing what came before." "James, let me finish. You came into our lives because 3 little girls left a note asking someone to visit their lonely father. But you stayed because of who you are, your kindness, your patience, your understanding of what it means to build family from love rather than just biology. The girls adore you, and I love you. I'm in love with you, Claire, and I want to know if you feel the same way." Claire felt tears streaming down her face. "I do feel the same way. I love you, and I love those 3 determined little girls who refused to let either of us stay lonely. But James, I'm terrified. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be part of a family. What if I fail them? What if I'm not enough? You're already part of our family. You have been since that Christmas. And Claire, you're more than enough. You're everything we needed without knowing we needed it. The question is whether you're willing to take the risk to build something permanent with us, knowing that it might be scary and complicated, and that none of us really know what we're doing." "Yes," Claire whispered. "Yes, I'm willing to take that risk." Their engagement was announced to the girls over breakfast the next morning, and the triplets' excitement could probably be heard across the neighborhood. They immediately began planning the wedding, insisting on pink dresses and flowers everywhere. The wedding took place in the same hospital chapel where Claire had worked, surrounded by colleagues who had watched her transformation from a guarded woman, who worked every holiday, to someone glowing with love and belonging in her vows. Claire spoke about 3 little girls who had left a note that changed her life: Lily, Rose, and Daisy. "You asked someone to visit your daddy because he was lonely. You couldn't have known that the person who needed that visit most was me. You taught me that family is built on love and choice and showing up every day, not on biology or legal documents. You gave me a home when I had been homeless in every way that mattered. I promise to love your father, and I promise to love you 3 with everything I have. Thank you for refusing to let loneliness win." James's vows acknowledged his late wife while honoring his new love. "Margaret gave me the gift of our daughters and taught me what love looked like. She would have adored Claire. Gua would have been grateful that the girls and I found someone who could help us heal while honoring her memory. Claire, you didn't replace Margaret. You created something new with us, something that honors the past while building a future. You taught me that hearts are bigger than we think. that we can love multiple people in different ways without diminishing any of those loves. Thank you for taking a chance on a broken family and helping us become whole. The girls served as flower girls, of course, wearing matching pink dresses and carrying baskets of rose petals that they threw with enthusiastic abandon. Years later, when the triplets were teenagers preparing to graduate high school, they would reflect on the note they had written as 4-year-olds. That simple plea, "Please visit Daddy, he's lonely," had set in motion events that created their family. Do you remember writing that note? Claire asked them one evening over dinner. Not really, Lily admitted. We were so young, but we've heard the story so many times it almost feels like we do remember. The tea was sad, Rose said. Even as little kids, we could feel it. We wanted him to be happy again. And you wanted a mom, Daisy added pragmatically. All our friends had moms, and we wanted one too. So we thought if we could get Daddy a friend, maybe that friend could become our mom. You three were master matchmakers at 4 years old, James said with a laugh. Most adults can't pull off what you did. We just knew you needed her, Lily said, looking at Claire, and that she needed us too, even if we didn't understand exactly why at the time. Claire reached across the table and took James's hand, still amazed sometimes that this was her life. A husband who loved her, 3 daughters who had claimed her as their own, a family built from loneliness and a child's simple note. The note itself was framed and hung in Claire's office, a reminder of how healing could come from unexpected places, how 3 little girls had understood something profound, that loneliness didn't have to be permanent, that families could be built by choice, and that Christmas miracles sometimes came in the form of pediatric patients who refused to let their father spend the rest of his life alone. James's company thrived under his leadership, but he became known not just for business acumen, but for compassion, particularly toward employees dealing with personal tragedies. He established programs for bereavement, support, and flexible work arrangements for single parents. Remembering what it had been like to navigate loss while trying to be present for his daughters, Claire continued nursing, but eventually transitioned to working in hospital administration, developing programs to support foster children during medical crises. She became an advocate for children aging out of the system, using her own experience to guide policy changes. And the triplets grew up knowing they had played a crucial role in creating their family, that their childish note had been the catalyst for healing and love. They learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is reach out to someone who's lonely, that asking for help or offering friendship can change lives in ways you never imagined. On the 20th anniversary of that first Christmas, when Claire had visited the Parker house, the family gathered again, now including the girls' own partners and even a grandchild on the way. They reflected on how a simple note, written in crayon by determined 4-year-olds, had created this gathering, this family, this life. To Lily, Rose, and Daisy, James raised his glass in a toast, who saw their father's loneliness and refused to accept it, who wrote a note that brought us the greatest gift we could have asked for, and who taught us all that love can heal, families can be built, and Christmas miracles are real if you're brave enough to ask for them. To the triplets, everyone echoed, raising their glasses, and Claire, surrounded by the family she had never dared to dream she could have, felt gratitude wash over her, for 3 little girls who had seen their father's pain and tried to fix it, for a man who had been willing to love again despite his fear, for a note that said simply, "Please visit Daddy, he's lonely," and changed the course of 4 lives forever. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the smallest gestures, a child's note, a nurse's visit, a willingness to believe that loneliness doesn't have to be permanent, and that families are built not by blood, but by showing up, day after day, for the people who need you most. If this story reminded you that children often see needs adults try to hide, and that responding to a simple plea for connection can create healing beyond what we imagine, Please take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who has shown you that families can be built through choice and love. And subscribe to our channel for more stories about unexpected connections and the courage to love again after loss. Leave a comment below about a time when a child's perspective helped you see something you were missing, or when reaching out to someone lonely changed both your lives. Your stories remind us all that we're never too broken to love again, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is answer a note that says, "Please visit, I'm lonely," with the simple act of showing up.